one of these days, somebody that's really ambitious and really has it going on is going to do maybe a book or a thesis on kind of the creation of music during the pandemic and how that was different from music before the pandemic and after, because some of
Hey everybody, this is TJR,
and this is Robert Kinsler.
and welcome to New Music Friday. Today, we both got some new releases we picked up that we're excited about. Robert, why don't you give us a little overview of what you're going to talk about?
I'm going to be talking about the new Garbage album. I'm going to be talking about a special collection featuring Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. I'm also going to be giving a little bit of a preview on the latest Styx album that just came out. And I'll also be talking about a special music TV show that's going to be premiering in early July. And I'm going to give everyone a little bit of a preview about that. How about you?
Cool.
What are you going to be bringing to the table?
Well, I'm going to talk about my record store day release pickups, which I didn't get a whole lot this year, but I got a few little, I should say, oddball items that I think are really cool, even if they're a bit odd and maybe not what the audience here might be expecting. And also a vintage album that I picked up used by a certain lead singer of a very famous band, a British band that everybody is familiar with, that I rediscovered the other week because I picked up this copy of it on vinyl, which I've never owned it on vinyl before. And so why don't we go ahead and let's start with some of what you got. I'm real excited to hear about it.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I will kick things off, everyone. And this is the latest album from Garbage, No God, No Gods, No Masters. I actually here have the deluxe edition, and I'll go into some of the details about that in a minute. But this is the band's first album since 2016, and that's when they came out with Strange Little Birds. And this is, I would say, probably one of the most powerful albums a band has ever done. They are definitely taking a no holds barred, straightforward approach with some hot topics. I mean, let me just read you a couple of the song titles here. Uh, the Men Who Rule the World, Waiting for God, Godhead. I mean, they're talking about capitalism. They're talking about religion. They're talking about, the Me Too movement. I mean, a lot of the things that we hear about on the cable news networks are actually being discussed on this album, and all that stuff is fine, but you know what really is incredible is just the songs, and the performances are just so freaking powerful. I mean, I just love this album. It's one of those albums you put it in the CD player and then just crank it up. Just great. And then, like I said, I did get the deluxe edition. So while the first album, which is 11 tracks, those are all original, that's on the first disc. The second one has 8 great bonus tracks, and let me just share a little bit here real quickly. They do an amazing reworking of David Bowie's Starman, which I just love. And then everyone knows kind of the Bruce Springsteen, Patti Smith kind of classic Because the Night. Garbage just nails that. And then they also do a song with Exene and John Doe of X, and that's another great, great song on this bonus disc. So I can't say enough great things. Just really quickly open it up. So there's a poster, art prints, an expanded booklet, all kinds of goodies here. But it's just a great addition. If you're thinking about getting the new Garbage album, pick up the deluxe edition. It's only a few dollars more, and it's definitely worth it.
Wow. Do you want to just really quickly, I didn't, can just let me have a better look at some of those items that were in there?
Okay,
I
sure,
just wanted a
sure.
better
So
look.
there's so here. Let me show this up because these are very cool. So here's some of the art prints. I don't know if you can see those, like of the four
Hold them
band
up a little
members.
higher because I can't see. Hold them up a little
Okay,
higher. There we
okay.
go. Okay,
Can
that's
you see them
perfect.
now? Okay. And these are really nice. I mean, it's very nice. And these cardstock, very, very uh, neat.
Wow.
And and then a very nice booklet here with lyric sheets. You can read all the lyrics really well. Very artfully done. And like I said, the band has a lot to say here, and kind of the overall and feel and the look of all the packaging, I think kind of is representative of kind of some of the hot topics that they're tackling here. And then there's also, let me stand back a little bit. There's also this cool poster here, so you can see that here. So you can see that. So there's all kinds of stuff in here, you know,
Very
really a
nice.
great package.
I want to comment on
Go ahead.
this set that you picked up. I want to comment on that set a little bit. So, first of all, Garbage's that new album did get released on Record Store Day the same weekend. It got released with like a different cover art, and I think it was on pink vinyl. And but also some of those bonus tracks you're referring to, I thought I'd mention this, especially the one with John Doe and Exene and the cover of
Uh-huh.
Starman. Those two tracks were a Record Store Day release from a couple of years ago. They
Okay.
were released on just a 7-inch, uh, vinyl single, and then maybe about a year or so later, they put them out for digital as just a digital single, which was great because then people who couldn't get it on Record Store Day could get to hear it. So I'm really glad to hear that this is now available on CD
Mhm.
in this new deluxe package for this album. I haven't heard this album yet. There are a lot of Garbage albums that I've really enjoyed. There have been some that I've not enjoyed,
Mhm.
but I'm curious to hear this album. I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I think I'll stream it on Tidal maybe later today and
I
check
would
it out.
recommend it. I mean, yeah, and I mean, Garbage from the time their first album came out, I think it was in August of 1995. I mean, we forget now that they've been around for a quarter century.
Yeah.
They at that time, and I think still were really cutting edge with their kind of mix of alt rock and kind of electronica and just Shirley Manson's kind of vocal approach. I mean, just a really great, great great band in terms of the sound that they make. But here, the songs and the power and everything here is just firing on all cylinders, and the mix is just really incredible. I think I look forward to getting your feedback on the album after you listen to it, TJ. I'm just every time I hear this album, I love it more.
The fact that you're excited about it excites me to want to hear it now more so than ever, to put it more at the top of my list. There's so much
Yeah,
stuff out there that I'm trying to get to and listen to. So cool. I'm glad to hear that.
yeah.
What else do you have here that you want to talk about right now?
Okay, so let's go on to the next collection I brought here. And this is actually a retrospective from Noel Gallagher. And Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds is the official name of kind of the project. And this kind of celebrates his 10-year solo career since he left Oasis. And everybody knows he, along with his brother, kind of were the main guys in Oasis. And everyone kind of knows their story that this was a very contentious relationship, with fights on stage and the whole 9 yards. And Noel Gallagher, in my mind, is probably a little bit more of the talented of the pair. He did the majority of the songwriting. Liam sang, I think, probably got to sing more songs because he didn't play an instrument, whereas Noel's a great guitar player and all that stuff. But Noel Gallagher's solo career has been incredible, and boy, do you get to me, you get all the standouts of his solo career on this collection of 3 discs. And there's also several new studio tracks that he's added to the mix to make you excited. There's some instrumental versions that are previously unissued. Really great. And this comes like in a book, kind of like you can see it here, just a really, so it has the 3 discs, but it has some great, let's show it here, just some nice artworks and liner notes. And I mean, it's like a full length book here. It's just really amazing. Just love this. Um, great collection. Some really neat photos that you can see. Just an outstanding collection. And if you're not familiar with his solo career, I would recommend you start with this collection, because then you have many of his best known songs, and get to learn a little bit about him and the other musicians that have played with him. Just a great collection. Matter of fact, before we were taping today, while I was setting up, I was cranking it up on my system. Just love the songs on here.
Cool. I have not been real familiar with Noel Gallagher's solo work, and it's something that just has not entered too much into my stratosphere. But you keep bringing him up in our conversations. And recently, there was a single by him, just a few, maybe within the last month or so, there was a new single by him. The name
Uh-huh.
escapes me at the moment, but I heard it and I thought, wow, that's such a great song. And I really should make an effort. This is, I'm sure, available on streaming. I'll
Yes.
probably look for this on Tidal and give that a listen since it's a collection and I can get kind of a good overview
Yeah.
of what his
And
solo work's been like. I was not aware it was 10 years. Wow.
yeah, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, because I don't have it in front of me, but I saw him with his band perform on the main stage at Coachella, and it has to be, I want to say 7, 8 years ago. I mean, it's been a while, and he was fantastic, and that's where he really kind of got on my radar. I unfortunately I had not gone to Coachella the years that Oasis played there. And but I did catch him there, and he performed. I remember as the sun was going down. It was a really powerful moment, and boy, his music was up to the dramatic setting that I was experiencing. And then I started exploring some of his solo albums and stuff, and just great stuff. I mean, I love Oasis and stuff, but I think his solo career is just as strong. And some of these songs, if I had a gun, in the heat of the moment. I mean, these are just some great songs here. And I'm wondering if the new song you heard was "We're on Our Way Now." I don't know if that might be the song, but anyway.
I have a feeling that probably, even as an outsider, not being that familiar with his catalog, that his solo work maybe doesn't get the attention that the Oasis stuff got because there isn't all that soap opera and drama
Mhm.
that was there when Oasis was the thing. I remember I knew Oasis more for the drama. It was kind of like Kanye West. I knew
Right,
Kanye West more for the soap opera and the drama and the controversies than I did because of the music.
right.
And I have a feeling that it's a shame that his catalog, being as good as you say it is, probably doesn't get the attention it deserves because he's just professionally putting out the music, professionally putting on shows, and
Right.
there isn't all this soap opera going on around it,
Yeah.
which is the better way to be creating music. As somebody who's played in bands, as you and I know, when you've got all this soap opera and drama surrounding you, it can really be crushing when you're trying to create great music. And it's so much easier to create music when you don't have to deal with that.
Exactly. When you're all on the same
Yeah.
page. And it's funny if you go back, it wasn't only the drama within Oasis and the two Gallagher brothers. It was unfortunately all the drama, primarily in Great Britain more than in the U.S. because other things were going on. But the whole thing where they were pitting Blur against Oasis and trying to act like it was this big battle and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Blur is an incredible band, incredible songs and everything. Same with Oasis. And the emphasis should have been about don't, let's not compare these bands and try to pit them against each other like they're in a ring gun trying to knock each other out. Let's just appreciate that we're here to experience this great music that they're making, but again, and here I am, a music journalist saying this, but a lot of times journalists have to play something up, to try to get people to read whatever it is they're writing. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Kind of
Yeah.
like the old Rolling Stones Beatles thing.
I was almost gonna bring that. That's exactly right. Exactly. Like, whereas rather than, the Rolling Stones were not the Beatles and vice versa. I mean, they both were great bands doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And the Stones, members of the Stones and Beatles were great friends. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this is really exciting, is a new music TV show coming to Access TV on Wednesday, July 7th, is when the initial episode is going to be aired, and that's going to feature Vintage Trouble. Now, this series is kind of interesting. There's plenty of shows that have had featured live performances from our favorite artists, but this show is as much about the venue and the location where they're performing as it is about the artist. So, for example, when Vintage Trouble performs on that first episode, they're going to be playing at the Old Black Church, which is a very historical building in Charleston. Uh, on another episode, Jackson Brown's going to be on there, and he's going to be performing at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. That's a very historic venue where so many greats have performed over the decades. Big Head Todd and the Monsters, they're a great blues rock band. They're going to be playing at Red Rocks Amphitheater. So all these episodes are being shot at different locations, and they're also locations kind of associated with either the groups or the style of music that they champion.
Uh-huh.
So this is a really cool show. I haven't yet watched a full-length episode. I'm going to be doing that because they sent me a preview of the first episode, and I'll have a review of that on my blog. But I wanted to let everyone know so you can get it on your calendar. It's going to kick off on Wednesday, July 7th. And if you have Access TV, then you can watch the show when it's on. And it's going to
Very
be on 8:30 Pacific time. I'm sorry, 8:30 Eastern time and 5:30 Pacific time.
great. And that's you're of course going to be previewing that on your blog. And
Right.
real quick again, what's your blog address, the main URL?
Well, it's good. You just search and put in Robert Kinsler, comma, rock and roll truth, and that's the easiest way to get.
Gotcha.
As we've talked about, I do posts pretty much every day, so there's a lot of things I write about and discuss and everything that I don't have time to bring to the show that we do
Excellent.
together. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the new Styx album, which is just released today, and it's
Yeah.
called Crash of the Crown. Now, I was fortunate to be sent an advanced stream from the record company, which I always appreciate when they do that, so I have time to live with the album a little bit. And I'm telling you, this is another masterwork from the band. Back in 2017, they released The Mission, which is actually a concept album about a manned mission to Mars and all the perilous things that happened to the crew. And but like I said earlier, none of all these high concepts and everything would mean anything if you didn't have good music, good performances. Again, Styx has hit it out of the park again with this new album. Um, so you can go to my blog and check out a full length review of it, and maybe I'll even talk about it again in the future. But it was apparently it was written prior to the pandemic, but it was recorded during the pandemic where they had to do all kind of creative things to kind of get all the tracks together. But listening to this album, you wouldn't think there was any challenges. It's just a freaking great album, TJ. And I'd love for you to hear it too and let me and everybody out there know your feedback. But I really think that this is another one of these great veteran artists that is continuing to try to go into new directions, try to not rest on their laurels. And Styx has plenty of those, and they're trying to, go into the future and still do great songs and great music. And so I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Don't dismiss it. I mean, this is a great Styx album. Tommy Shaw and company are definitely, they're they're there. They're making some great music, and I can't imagine how great it will be to hear some of these songs in concert.
Wow. That's high praise, and that gets me fired up to hear it. And of course, The Mission, their last album, received a lot of critical praise, but not a lot of love as far as the media was concerned, as far as radio was concerned. And we've talked about this before. It's a shame. So many veteran artists doing some of the best work of their careers, but classic rock radio won't even give it the time of day.
Yeah, it makes me, I have to be honest, it makes me infuriated, really infuriated that they, like you said, that these bands are doing, you know, some of their best work, and there's nobody going to play it on the radio. At least now with the World Wide Web and social media and some of these kind of things, bands do have ways to get it out to their fans and their followers and stuff. And I sure hope this is a situation where this album, a lot of people hear about it, and I appreciate us talking about it today and me running my review. But there's some great songs on it. You know,
Yeah, okay. I haven't heard it yet. And I remember when you brought The Mission to our Music Worth Buying show when we used to do that. Hopefully someday we get to do that again.
yeah,
And I remember how strongly you talked about it. And of course, everybody, I think that reviewed that album gave it a really strong review. And so, yeah, it is a shame that, but let's hope that with this album, it gets more coverage. The internet is more diverse than ever, than it's ever been. There's more outlets than ever. And of course, the album, I already checked earlier, the album's available for streaming right now. I just looked at it this morning when I pulled up Tidal, and I saved it to my favorites so that I can go ahead and give it a listen. And I'm
good.
looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah, some great song. And like I said, maybe we'll talk about it again when we've both had a chance to really live with the album and hear it a few times.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
be interesting to get your perspective on it. But I know that there's one song where there's multiple lead vocalists and some of the vocal harmonies here, and of course the guitar works great and all that stuff. But the songs are just really good and they resonate. And there's a really, because we've all been in this kind of thing, we're living remotely. We've been, like there was what, a year but when you and I didn't see each other in person. I mean, all these kind of things that we had to do. But there's a really strong positive spirit about this album that really made me feel good and stuff. And one of these days, somebody that's really ambitious and really has it going on is going to do maybe a book or a thesis on kind of the creation of music during the pandemic and how that was different from music before the pandemic and after. Because some of I've been blown away by some of the great albums that I've heard, during the pandemic, and then in these, now that we're starting to come out of it. And so albums that were created during that time and now we're starting to hear them, been some really great stuff. And it's very exciting as a music fan.
I have heard some really good stuff that was created during lockdown, yes, as well, that I was very, very pleased with. And I agree. I think you brought up a very good point. And I will definitely want to see that documentary when it comes out.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like
Yeah.
it's going to be
Okay.
somebody with a little bit more time and energy than I have, but no, I'm sure I'll love it. It's kind of like the Access TV thing I talked about earlier today. It's kind of interesting how people find new ways to kind of celebrate and introduce music into our lives, and that's a great thing.
So you've been very productive. You've been listening to a lot of stuff. I have probably not gotten as much over this last week since we last talked to each other. I did go to Record Store Day. I didn't pick up very much. A lot of what I was interested in was what you call a Record Store Day first, meaning it comes to Record Store Day first, and then it gets re-released nationally sometime later down the line. So for a lot of it, I decided I would just wait, mainly for budgetary reasons, since a lot of that stuff will be less expensive when it comes out nationally versus on Record Store Day. The only difference being that maybe the Record Store Day release will have perhaps a slight variance, maybe colored vinyl versus regular vinyl, just a few slight variances. So I decided to wait. This is probably going to come off as a bit oddball what I picked up for Record Store Day this time around, but I'm going to show it here. I picked up 2 albums, but only one of them was actually a Record Store Day official release. The other was just one I spotted, and on impulse, I got it. And so the first one I got here, which was an actual Record Store Day release, was The Good, the Bad, and the Funky by the Tom Tom Club. Recently, I've never talked about this, but I've gotten kind of fascinated by this group. They were kind of an offshoot of Talking Heads, and I've been kind of fascinated by the music they've been putting out. And this was apparently their last album, which was never released on vinyl, and also something I couldn't hear on streaming. I searched around for this, and it's just not available. So I did something I rarely do in this day and age. I bought it blind. I just decided, yeah, let's just get it. This was released, and I'll show the back cover here as well. And this cover, the front cover, is very reminiscent of the cover of their first album. It has a very similar art style. In fact, when I was at Record Store Day, my partner thought this was the first album, which of course has that big hit single, The Genius of Love, which everybody likes and has been sampled by Mariah Carey, and I think others have done it too. And this came out on a really nice colored vinyl here. I'll show it real quick here.
Okay.
Here we go. And it came out on this nice kind of colored splatter vinyl.
Oh, wow. That's really impressive.
Yeah. And but I gave it a listen, and I, like I said, bought it blind. That's always a thing. You never know. You might not like it.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that I liked about 95% of it. This was very cool, funky, electronic dance music, fun, real fun. There's a remake of Love to Love You Baby by Diana Ross that I really enjoyed.
Wow.
And yeah, so I enjoyed this album. It's not, it's just basically a lot of fun. And so that worked out well for me. The other thing I picked up, I just saw this out of the corner of my eye, looked at it. It was sitting there on the rack. It was not a Record Store Day release. And my partner said, "You have to get this." And I did, even though it was totally impractical of me to do so.
Uh-huh.
This was an album I used to own in my childhood. It may have been one of the first records I ever owned. I was just a little kid, and this was the 60s, late 60s official Batman TV soundtrack album. Although, as a soundtrack album, this album is an absolute abysmal failure. Um, I'll tell you, the music created, and I want to talk about this music a little bit here. Nelson Riddle, his score, his musical cues for the Batman TV series in the 60s, his score is fantastic, but you're not going to get much of this on this record. Okay. Like I said, the appeal for me was pure nostalgia. The reason I got this. This album features some of the Nelson Riddle Orchestra's music, but it also features the actors talking over that music, talking before it, talking after it, talking during it. It features a lot of really kind of lame attempts at sounding like rock and roll music. I don't think it's the Nelson Riddle Orchestra playing it. It's some other band. And some of that music, I'm going to guess, was probably used in scenes like maybe where Batman and Robin walk into a nightclub and they're supposed to be 60s TV version of what rock and roll sounded like, or what they thought rock and roll sounded like.
I remember scenes.
Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about.
I
And
do,
with, of course,
exactly.
dialogue going over it. There's one track here where you hear Burt Ward, various versions of Holy This, Holy That, scattered throughout the music. So like I said, and what was amazing is as I played this, it was like, oh my gosh, I remember every bit of this. Because I played this a lot as a kid, when I was a little kid. This was cool because I got to hear their voices. We didn't live in a world of home video or any of that where you could watch things on demand or anything. You just watched it when it was broadcast, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
And then when they reran it, you watched it. And you had to watch it as it was broadcasting with commercials. And so, this was as close as you got to actually maybe replaying an episode, was you got to hear some of the dialogue from some of the episodes. Yeah. So, and of course, fidelity was not an issue, was not a thing back then for this sort of thing. So I was kind of surprised that the record was actually printed, it's just black vinyl, but it was printed on a very thick, heavy vinyl, actually. I was kind of surprised. This is a new pressing, of course. And, but once again, purely nostalgia. Probably not something I'm going to listen to a lot of, and doesn't do justice to the music of the Nelson Riddle Orchestra that was created for this show. But for anybody that really remembers that music and wants to hear it in all its glory, I want to pull up this CD release that came out from La La Land Records, where they're a company that I've been meaning to do a video on. They do re-releases of TV and movie soundtracks, and they will do extensive releases where they cover all the music. They will re-release soundtracks to movies that have gotten nationwide releases, but they'll give you the entire soundtrack, not just highlights of the soundtrack. And this is the soundtrack to the 1966 or 1968 movie, the Batman movie that came out. But all of the cues from the TV show were used in this movie. And they go back and they do a great job of restoring and enhancing the fidelity of the audio as best as they can. And it sounds amazing. This was a limited release that when it came out, very limited, I think maybe 3,000 copies, but they did a secondary, a slightly modified release to preserve the exclusivity of this, and it has different cover art to kind of preserve the exclusivity of what they did, the limited exclusivity of what they did with this. They did a second release, just a slightly modified version of it that's available now. But if you really want to hear this music in all its glory, and it's great music, you can pick up this CD from La La Land Records. And I'll just say, as a comic book fan and a Batman fan, this music is perfect for a 1960s Batman. It's perfect music. And when I read old comics from even the 50s and 60s, this music fits it perfectly. So yeah, I picked up this for the nostalgia of it. I don't really recommend it if you really want to hear the music from the TV show in all its wonderful glory. I recommend you go to La La Land Records and pick up this, is what I recommend.
Very cool. That's
there's that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I was not aware of any of that. That's and I love the obviously the reruns of Batman. I mean,
Mhm.
just what a great show. So much fun.
The only other thing I'm going to show from Record Store Day was not something I picked up. My partner picked this up. She is a huge U2 fan, as you know, and I
Right.
probably mentioned it here on the channel. But she found this picture disc of U2's Fire EP, and while this is a cool picture here, what's really awesome is this, the other side here, and this image of U2 as really young teenagers in someone's living room, probably one of the band members,
Yeah.
parents' living room.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's really awesome. But she, being the big U2 fan that she is, had to get this. She saw this. I have to get this. One other thing I did pick up that I want to talk about, and kind of a preview of something that will be coming up on the channel. The day before Record Store Day, I stopped at Rhino Records in Claremont, California, and I picked up this copy of Robert Plant's first album, Pictures at 11. I've only ever owned this on CD. Here's my used CD copy that I bought that I still can't get the darn sticker off of.
Uh-huh.
The I can't. I tried. I can't get that thing off of it. So I just gave up. But I've only ever owned this. This came out in the 80s. This was a pressing that came out in the 80s too, and for all I know, maybe an original pressing. And I decided I wanted to hear this on vinyl, and it was very inexpensive. It was only like $6 or so. By the way, so was the CD back when I bought it in the day. I found myself rediscovering this album. Now, I will say I was surprised because when I bought it, I noticed that the vinyl, it certainly showed some wear. And
Okay.
when I took it home and looked at it closer, I saw what could be potential scratches. I played it, not a skip, not a pop anywhere, no, nothing. It sounded fine. There was surface noise, of course, because it's old. This vinyl record did actually sound better. This 80s vinyl record did actually sound better than this 80s CD, in my opinion. But I rediscovered this album. And it's not a great album. It's a really good album. But with the benefit of hindsight, I heard it very differently. And I found it really interesting to hear Robert Plant reinventing himself on this first album. This is probably the most Zeppelin-like of his solo albums. It comes the closest to sounding like Zeppelin. And with each succeeding album, he moved further away from that. He always stayed true to certain elements of his roots, but he kept moving away and experimenting and going into other things. And so I wrote a review of this album, which I published on the Patreon page as a text. And that text will become the basis of a video that will be on the channel later. And
Okay.
so little sneak preview of that. But yeah, I completely rediscovered it, completely gained a new appreciation for it. I always liked it before. It is available as a remastered CD several years back with a couple bonus tracks. I may yet pick that one up. At this point, everybody, just tell us what you've picked up lately. Let us know what's excited you, any new things you've heard, any old things you're discovering again. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, please click like. That does so much benefit if you just click that like button. Also, we'd love it if you click subscribe, smash that bell notification icon so you can know when new videos come out. I want to thank the patron supporters who help us to create more videos, and also I want to thank everybody who shares these videos on social media. Sharing them on social media does so much good. We really appreciate it. Everybody, we're really looking forward to checking out your comments, and we'll see you next week again on New Music Friday. Bye-bye.
See you later.